10, 1940.
Now at last, the slowly gathered, long pent-up fury of the storm broke upon us. 4 or 5 millions of men met each other in the first shock of the most merciless of all wars of which record has been kept. Holland, Luxembourg. Out of the darkness came, suddenly, ardent storm troops. And long before daybreak, 150 miles of front were aflame.
Said Adolf Hitler, "The fighting beginning today decides the fate of the German nation for the next 1,000 years." The first phase of the German campaign against Holland and Belgium is a military masterpiece. Seldom has nation after nation fallen so swiftly, so completely, to so ruthless an enemy. May 13, 1940. 3 days after the King summoned him to head beleaguered Britain's government, Winston Churchill addresses the House of Commons.
I would say to the House, as I said to those who have joined this government, I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. We have before us an ordeal of the most grievous kind. We have before us many, many long months of struggle and suffering. You ask, what is our policy? I will say, it is to wage war. By sea, land, and air, with all our might, and with all the strength that God can give us. To wage war against a monstrous tyranny never surpassed in the dark, lamentable catalogue of human crime. That is our policy. You ask, what is our aim? I can answer in one word. Victory. Victory at all costs. Victory in spite of all terror. Victory however long and hard the road may be. For without victory, there is no survival. Let that be realized. Come then, let us go forward together with our united strength.
Chartwell, Churchill's country house.
The Dutch Prime Minister had explained to me that he could, by a telephone message from Chartwell, press a button which would confront an invader with impassable water obstacles.
The Dutch Prime Minister's words had been nonsense. Holland was flooded, but this didn't stop the Germans. In Holland, the Germans break through at every point, bridging the canals, seizing the locks and water controls. The tulip beds are plowed by panzer tracks. In a single day, all the outer Dutch defenses are mastered. And on May 14, between noon and 2:30 in the afternoon, Rotterdam. At the end of 2 hours, 20,000 are dead in the flaming wreckage of 26,000 buildings. Queen Wilhelmina flees to London and speaks to the world.
there is now the stillness of death, broken only by the weeping of those who have survived. Yesterday's memory is today's oblivion. We pray that other nations will be spared.
Yes, 10 Downing Street.
May 15, Churchill receives a frantic call from French Prime Minister Reynaud. He says, "We are beaten. We have lost the battle." North and south of Sedan, the Germans break through on a front of 60 miles. The French army is destroyed and scattered. May 20, one of the most important meetings of the war takes place in London. The Prime Minister feels that the Admiralty should assemble a large number of small vessels, just in case. May 27, the Belgian front is broken and King Leopold is about to capitulate. The German pincers are closing fast. For the British Expeditionary Force, all hope of escape to the south has vanished. Now there remains only the sea.
Could we reach it? Or must we be surrounded and broken up in the open field? The whole artillery and equipment of our army, irreplaceable for many months, must be lost. But what was that compared with saving the army? The nucleus and structure upon which alone Britain could build her armies of the future. Lord Gort, who had from the 25th onwards felt that evacuation by sea was our only chance, now proceeded to form a bridgehead around Dunkirk and to fight his way into it with what strength remained. All the discipline of the British and the magnificent qualities of their commanders, who included Alexander, Brooke, and Montgomery, were to be needed. All that man could do was done. Would it be enough? Calais was the crux. I sent this message to Brigadier Nicholson. Defense of Calais to the utmost is of the highest importance to our country and our army now. Every hour you continue to exist is of the greatest help to the British Expeditionary Forces. Government has decided you must continue to fight. Have greatest admiration for your splendid stand. Evacuation of Calais will not, repeat, not take place.
Nicholson holds until his food runs out, his water supply, his ammunition. Eventually, the Germans overrun the citadel, and the entire battalion is either killed, wounded, or taken prisoner. This is Dunkirk, an ancient seaport dating back to the 7th century. Fortified first in the 10th century by the Count of Flanders. Now it's the only exit for the trapped men of the British forces, pushed to the water's edge. The beach at Dunkirk.
On the day I ordered the retreat from Dunkirk, a short service of intercession and prayer was held in Westminster Abbey. The English are loath to expose their feelings, but in my stall in the choir, I could feel the pent-up, passionate emotion, and also the fear of the congregation, not of death or wounds, but of the defeat and the final ruin of Britain. The House should prepare itself for hard and heavy tidings. Of course, whatever happens at Dunkirk, we shall fight on. There was a white glow, overpowering, sublime, which ran through our island from end to end. Thus began Dunkirk. A great tide of small vessels began to flow towards the sea, first to our channel ports, and thence to the beaches of Dunkirk and the beloved army. On the beaches, among the sand dunes for 3, 4, or 5 days, scores of thousands of men dwelt under unrelenting air attack. Bombs plunged into the soft sand, which muffled their explosions. In the early stages, after a crashing air raid, the troops were astonished to find that hardly anybody had been killed or wounded. The second factor which Hitler had not foreseen was the slaughter of his airmen. By intense effort, Fighter Command maintained successive patrols over the scene and fought the enemy at long odds. Hour after hour, they bit into the German fighter and bomber squadrons, taking a heavy toll, scattering them and driving them away. Day after day, this went on. The soldiers crouched in sand dunes with composure and growing hope. Before them lay the grey but not unfriendly sea. Beyond, the rescuing ships and home. All the aid of the sand and all the prowess in the air would have been vain without the sea. Perfect discipline prevailed ashore and afloat. To and fro between the shore and the ships plied the little boats. defeat, glory came to the island people, united and unconquerable. And the tale of the Dunkirk beaches will shine in whatever records are preserved of our affairs.
Of course, we left here at 4 in the afternoon, and we reached Dunkirk some of the 4 in the morning. We started performing, taking the troops off the beach and putting aboard other ships. We was there 3 days and nights, and after that we proceeded to coming home. We picked up a crew of a Bremen bomber, Englishman, and we saved them, and on a little further, a paddle steamer got mined. We picked the survivors out of the water, some of them. Well, on our way back, one of the soldiers died, and we covered him up, and there was a sandbag we put under his head, and we found a bottle of whiskey in the bag when we got him into Ramsgate, and me and my mate, Mr. Matthews, we drank the lot. When I got home, my wife said, "You drunk or tired?" I said, "Both."
More than 336,000 British and Allied troops are landed in England.
We must be very careful not to assign to this deliverance the attributes of a victory. Wars are not won by evacuations. Troops returned with nothing but rifles and bayonets and a few hundred machine guns, and were forthwith sent to their homes for 7 days' leave. Those who had actually fought the Germans in the field had the belief that, given a fair chance, they could beat them.
Well, after a good hard time, we're all glad to be back in England. And after a good wash and brush up, we're all ready to go back after a spot of leave. And he'll not chase us out like he has done this time. We'll get him on the run. And by God, when we do, we'll make him run.
I'm not a jury, but I jumped in the trench and got this one, and I put 7 through him. And I didn't forget him. He got 2 of our chaps, but I got 1 or 2 of theirs.
We're not downhearted if we can have a rest.
No.
We want to get back after a good rest, but we do need a rest. And we'll be back and we'll have a bloody good smack at them.
They can say what they like. They say it was luck. They say it was a miracle. But I say it was the hand of God.
Even though large tracts of Europe and many old and famous states have fallen or may fall into the grip of the Gestapo and all that odious apparatus of Nazi rule, we shall not flag or fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight in the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.